Donovan Mitchell just scored 71 points in this shoe, the D.O.N Issue 4. And much like the player they're named after, they're an incredibly well-rounded shoe that do a few key things really well that may be able to help your game too. So let's dig into them. And heads up, make sure you stick to the end of the video because I am debuting a all-new universal rating system for every shoe that I review, just so it's easier for you to have a more standardized comparison to all the shoes that I'm reviewing. You know, because like some of you have pointed out, rightfully so, the shuttle test, the jump height test, sometimes it's just really hard to keep them standardized, and it's kind of hard to compare shoes kind of across the year that I review, just because of certain things that are going on, temperature outside, different things like that. So with this new universal rating system, it's my way to try to create a standardized ranking of shoes kind of across a bunch of different categories to give you a better idea of how all these shoes compare to each other. So make sure you stick around for that. Now, the first thing I'll say about the D.O.N Issues is that the uppers of these should be emulated by a lot of other brands. Now, if you look at just the general construction of these, it is that light lock construction, which I find pretty interesting because it's more of a linear basket weave, right? It has more right angles to it. It's not as tightly woven. However, it layers a lot of threads on it. So if you look at it on the microscope, you can see it kind of goes down layers, almost like that scene in Inception where he's in the black hole. So you really do get a nice lockdown from a pretty light upper because remember, these strands have gaps in them. So these shoes stay pretty breathable for how much padding you get in the uppers, because if you look at the tongues of the D.O.N Issue 4, it has the most padding that I've seen on any shoe this year because it's got these huge foam pods on them, right where the laces will go, but then a really thick underlayer of foam as well. Plus it is a gusseted tongue, so it really hugs your foot in the shoe. So you are getting some breathability from these, even though they are pretty chunky mid, but you're also getting a lot of that security from the tongue. But then as you see on the lace line of these too, it is an offset lace pattern, so when you do tie these down, you are getting a really decent lockdown. However, just in terms of the uppers on these, I do think that in terms of kind of the feeling of security, but also not getting really bogged down and kind of heavy, these are kind of the best of both worlds, whereas some shoes go way minimalist and some shoes go way maximalist. These kind of are right in the sweet spot. And if you look at them on the upper durability test, the Dremel 10-second tie grit sandpaper, there is a durability guard, a drag guard here. However, the Dremel does rip right through that durability guard, and it does get a little bit through the light lock. So I would say if you are an extreme toe dragger on an outdoor court, these might not be the longest lasting things out there. However, on an indoor court, it should be just fine. Now, getting into the midsole teardown, I think this is where it's really going to be a love or hate, buy or not buy, because it is an entire bed of light strike foam, which, you know, light strike is incredibly light underfoot. The midsole does feel incredibly light. These are not bottom heavy shoes whatsoever. It does have a pretty narrow shank. It is pretty thick where it is. However, it does not cover a lot of the light strike. So in the very back of the heel and the very back of the forefoot, you're probably going to bottom this out faster than some other foams out there. However, while they are new, and if you are using an orthotic in them, you are going to get a ton of very nimble type feeling underfoot and a lot of light feeling under feet. I found with these, they were much easier to kind of glide along the court because light strike is just so light feeling and airy underfoot. So I would say the performance on these, while they're new, or if you are keeping that midsole a little bit newer with an orthotic in them, it is going to be really good. Just watch out for a performance loss as that midsole gets old. And looking at the outsole tread of the D.O.N Issue 4, pretty interesting. It's more of a flat wave digital pattern on these. It reminds me of some Asics tennis shoes, to be honest. It does have a decent grip, especially because the grip is a little more flat on those waves. So on an outdoor asphalt or concrete court, you're going to get more surface area contact, more traction, but also because it has those little digital cutouts on them, those right angles on them, you're going to get some decent grip on an indoor court as well. And carpet maybe is a little bit flat on there, so I probably would watch out for these on a carpet court. However, you know, in terms of grip and in terms of being able to stop on a dime, even on an outdoor court without any rubber warming, they still gripped really well. And on an indoor court, maybe about 2 to 3 minutes of rubber warming does get these up to a really nice gripping level on them, especially because the shank on these is pretty narrow, like I said, and you are just running on light strike foam. They are not the most streamlined shoes out there. So I actually think for the profile of the shoe, they actually are pretty speedy, but I think they're more speedy in more contained areas, not so much moving all the way up and down a court. And looking at these on the outsole durability test, the Dremel 10-second tie grit sandpaper, I mean, 1 millimeter of damage on a 2 millimeter tread depth. So I would say if you're on painted outdoor courts, should be just fine. Really, really gritty blacktop or asphalt, might start to wear these down. On an indoor court, should be just fine. And getting into the fit of the fours, they are very generous, and I do like all the padding in there. So if you are a narrow foot, I think you can go down a half size to get a real performance fit. However, with the gusseted tongue and all the padding, probably can just go true to size, medium foot true to size. And a 2E, I think you can go true to size. A 4E, I just would go up 1/2 size on these. They break in nice. That light lock does kind of break in pretty decently. Now, in terms of foot shape or ailments, I would say if you are saying with heel pain, ball of foot pain, tendonitis, anything like that, shock-inducing injuries, you know, I probably would be throwing an orthotic in these for any of that. While they're new, they're gonna feel fantastic. And if you go buy 10 pairs of them and just wear this throughout the year, then sure. However, you know, there are gonna start to bottom out on you as time passes. So if you are suffering from anything on your feet or prone to anything, like I said, you're gonna buy these, I would just throw an orthotic in them and they should be pretty decent. All right, now with all that being said, that brings us to the universal rating system of the D.O.N Issue 4. Now this is 8 categories, 5 points each. Total out of 40. First category would be containment, and I gave these a 4 out of 5 just because, number one, you are able to lock these down pretty well with the offset lace eyelets. The light lock is very nice, kind of going side to side for containment. The only thing is, it is a lighter shoe. The light strike is a little bit lighter, so over time the midsole might not be as containing. However, in the uppers, for kind of how light they are for a mid-top, more maximalist shoe, do contain you pretty well, so that's the only reason they kind of got 1 point off. And for number 2, bounce, I kind of was going back and forth on a 3 or a 4, but I ended up giving it a 4 just because while the shoe is new and if you put something in there to shield the midsole foam, the light strike will get you off the ground pretty easily in these. So while it's new, the bounce is fantastic. It's just, we'll kind of get to the durability of it in the durability section. And for number 3, shock absorption, I gave these a 3 out of 5 because light strike is meant to be able to get up off the ground easier. It is a much lighter foam. It's not a foam that necessarily absorbs shock really well or transmits it into heat, things like that, like Boost can do. And for support, I gave these a 3 just because, like I said, that shank is not as supportive as some others are. The light strike in the beginning, yes, is gonna be very supportive. Over time, it's gonna wane. If you put an orthotic in these, yeah, you bump them up to a 4 or a 5 for sure. It's just the shoe on its own. It's decent, it's just not elite. But remember, Donovan Mitchell playing in these, of course, has his own orthotics in them. He has his own last in there. So yes, he is playing with the D.O.N Issue 4, but remember, he has these augmented a little bit, makes them up to an elite shoe, just like you could as well. And for number 5, speed, I'm giving these a 4 out of 10 because they are so quick, so speedy off the first step, as well as in tight, confined spaces. They're super nimble. They're just not the fastest thing in a straight line. So straight line speed could be improved. However, in terms of quote unquote basketball quickness, there's really nothing better out there. And in terms of durability, obviously it's the midsole that's going to be the least durable in these shoes. Uppers are good, outsole is good, so I'm giving them a 3 just because, you know, most of the shoe is pretty durable. It's just that midsole. Now number 7, comfort. This was a really tough one because they are ridiculously comfortable shoes when you first put them on. It's just over time, like I said, you need an orthotic in there once the light strike bottoms. So I would say for initial comfort, 5 out of 5. In terms of longevity, they kind of start to go down. So all in all, I'm going to give them a 3 out of 5. And in terms of just raw playability, you know, I think it's an easy 5 out of 5 for these. For what these do, they just do so well. And you can see when you put them on the feet of someone who's really in the zone, they're able just to get out of the way of the player, act like an extension of the leg, and just kind of allow you to do your own thing. They're just such quick, nimble shoes. I felt like I could really get my feet off the ground really easily, whether to do any kind of shimmy steps, hezzy steps, things like that. And if you've watched any of my videos in the past, you'll know that I have some of the clunkiest basketball footwork out there. My tennis footwork is great. However, I played tennis in college and taught and all the other stuff, so obviously I'm gonna play tennis well. It's just in basketball, you know, sometimes I just do not have the prettiest footwork out there. So not only am I trying to improve on the fly, but I'm also trying to take like these like mental notes that a doctor would take on their patient. So in these, I really felt that it was the easiest for my foot to kind of get up and go. I really felt easy and quick kind of getting to the hoop on these. Even though these are not the fastest thing in a straight line, they are really fast on the first step, and they are very fast when switching directions or when trying to switch speeds. So when you're trying to go from a low speed situation to a little more of a quick and high speed situation, especially kind of in a contained area. So, you know, I would say, especially for the price point right now, like I said, Adidas is putting them at $71, which is really cool. However, just in general, you can get these on pretty deep discount, especially if you get the team colorways in them. So for the price, I think these are just such a huge buy. And for me, one of my favorite shoes of the year, like I said, taking into account price as well as playability. And like I said, you can see, you don't need a $200, $300 shoe in the NBA to really make a splash and to really make headlines. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're searching for shoes. With that being said, on the universal rating system, if you do want to see the universal ratings on all the shoes I've previously done, it is going to be in the 2023 basketball shoe guide. Now I'm offering a discount for that right now. It's gonna be in the description below because I don't have ratings on every shoe. It's gonna take me a little while to populate it. However, if you do a pre-order right now, it's just a few of the shoes that I have done. Like I said, you do get free updates throughout the year. So if you do wanna pre-order that right now, I am offering a discount on it currently until all the shoes kind of get updated. And if you wanna see a deep dive and tear down to the sibling of the D.O.N Issue 4, the Adidas Trae Young 2, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam and the number 71. I'll see you in the next one. Hey, that rhymed.